Nvidia, this monster of a company, this change agent in 2023 into 2024. Over the last couple of years, this company has just been blowing it out of the water to the point where a lot of folks had no idea where this company came from. And for some of you, that could be very surprising. And it's like, man, of course, Nvidia's been around for a while. I've known about it. I've been telling people, right? You've been telling folks. So in today's video, what I wanted to do is just give you my opinion, my technical analysis and fundamental analysis of where Nvidia may go next, some potential buy zones you may consider if you're looking to buy shares, and if you're trading Nvidia, how you should be maybe a little bit more cautious on the upside coming into this election, and just being patient about a slight pullback potentially into a higher high and higher lows, right? Continuing that bullish run for Nvidia, okay? So without further ado, my name is Dr. Brian. I'm a holistic life and business coach and strategist for entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I'm also an investor and options trader, and here just to serve my community a little bit more powerfully. Many people have been asking me, hey, Brian, you've been around for a minute, but I haven't seen many YouTube videos from you, man. So can you bring them back, please, so I can rewatch them over and over again, share them out. So if you're my community member, client, anyone that's familiar with Leverage University, I appreciate the push and the support. If you're new to me, right, hopefully I can serve you just as well, and you can get to know myself a little bit more, and hopefully these videos will serve you in a powerful way to learn, right, educate yourself, and then also to provide some context about how you can move forward with your own information and your own research, okay? So that leads into my disclaimer. This is not financial advice. This is my own experience. Do your own due diligence, right? And then take this for a grain of salt and see if it aligns with your perspectives, right? If not, cool. Put it down in the comments. I want to hear your comments and perspectives as well, or if you have anything to add or any videos you would like me to make. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Today, we've got Nvidia, right? Just as always with my research, I like to just put it out there. Like, what is this company? Okay. It serves in many different realms. Okay. It's in the semiconductor sector. It has typically a association with AI, but you can see that it has a lot of partnerships here. So for officially, if you want to look at this company and just look at the profile of it, it listed or IPO'd in 1999. Okay. So it has been around for a little bit of a minute. Just most people just weren't familiar or weren't investing early enough in it. But for my gamers out there, my computer nerds, my computer folks, right, we love you. Okay, they already knew about it, goes inside as a chip inside of their computers, powering them. Nvidia is a full stack computing infrastructure company. The company accelerates computing to help solve the computational problems. It includes computation, networking, graphics, and then includes its data center, accelerating computing platform, networking, AI, cockpit, automatic driving development agreements, autonomous vehicle solutions, electric vehicles, computing platforms, so on and so forth. The list can get so long, it just keeps going. All right. So if our future is online and with generative AI and computing, cybersecurity, online operations of our lives, as much as you don't like it or may like it, right, this company has a big part in that. All right. So we need to pay attention to it. We need to know where this generation is moving forward and how we can be a part of it. All right. So first thing I wanted to cover is going back here, and let's go into just Nvidia comparative to the S&P 500 over the last year. You can see here that I have the S&P 500. Most people have that in their portfolios, VTI, VOO. Maybe you have SPY, maybe, just in general, maybe you have SPXL, okay, the long version, the leverage version of the stock market. And you're seeing that, okay, great. This year, okay, year to date, or excuse me, let's just do year to date. Okay, we've got 23%, right, on the S&P, which is astronomical, but it's typical moving into an election season. We typically have a bullish year moving into an election, and then we have some settling in and decide where the market wants to go from there. Now, Nvidia, you can see that it's up over 186.5%, almost roughly 187% on year to date. That is tremendous. You can see here from the graphic, from our visual people, just how astronomical and steady the stock market has been, right? That 23%, 23%. And then you have Nvidia up here just going crazy. All right. Now, what I want you to summarize this for my savvy investors, for my experienced folks, right? You know that a stock cannot go up forever. Okay. This is an extreme bullish run, right? A momentum run, which a lot of us have taken advantage of. Some of us have missed slightly the boat, but that is okay. We've picked up shares. We've rode the momentum. We traded. But when things get to this level, right, I am not at all, because you may see some other videos around there like Nvidia is going to tank and don't buy the highs and all that kind of stuff, right? But with a company like this, there may be slight pullbacks, but it may not be drastic enough unless the market pulls back heavily. Okay. So typically what you want to see is you want to see an association with the overall market, right? It can take off without the market, or it may pull back and start equaling the market and it starts to settle in and then starts to separate again. All right. So that's a visual for my newer folks or just anyone that just wanted to see what's going on there. Now, if we come into Nvidia for my Robinhood folks, and the reason I like to show Robinhood is just because a lot of folks are, newer investors or beginners. And since this is public information and I serve a lot of different types of folks, I want to make sure everyone's included. I'll go to my Webull chart just in a minute for my savvy investors that want to see actually the charts of where my levels are. All right. So if I come on here to Nvidia year to date, we can clearly see that at the beginning of the year, okay, back here at January 2024, this was a stock split. Okay. So for my newer folks, and you heard of Nvidia, it's your corporation, or you've heard it from friends and family, Nvidia was not $50. Let's just round it to there. Nvidia was not $50. It was $500. Okay. Because there was a 10-to-1 stock split. Okay. So it gave investors and new folks an opportunity to buy into Nvidia. So if you already had 10 Nvidia shares in the stock split, okay, that accrued, right? That accrued 10 times. So, okay. So you got 10 shares per share versus the stock split. Okay. So if you had 1 share in Nvidia, you now have 10. If you had 2 shares in Nvidia, you now have 20. Okay. So it was very lucrative for investors that invested earlier with the stock split to now have more shares. Okay. But now it presents an opportunity for newer investors that are coming into the company for it not to be spending $1,000 on the company. All right. So Nvidia went from $50 all the way up to the high here in June of close to $1,200. It's just rounded around there, $1,200. Okay. That's a tremendous run for a company in a very short amount of time, but it's not unheard of. But with this type of run after the stock split, right, the company is trying to continue higher, but it's getting stuck roughly around here at these resistance levels, right around 139, 140. There it is, right? 135 broke through, went to 134, got pretty close right there, 130. Now it's broke new highs upwards of 138. And then, roughly 140 it has touched already. Okay. So in this case, you can kind of see here that every time it got in this area, it came down, it came down, it came down, it came down. This is a line chart, L-I-N-E. Okay. Now for my folks that understand charts and folks that want to understand charts, let me go to my charts here and show you for Nvidia. Come on. There we go. So I'm on a weekly chart on Nvidia, and you can clearly see here roughly the same thing. So each candlestick represents a weekly time frame. Now, if I pull up my RSI, my relative strength index, it tells us that this company is potentially a little overbought. Okay. Every time the RSI, it just tells us if something's overbought, there's too many people in the kitchen right now, there's too many people buying at the highs, then it's overbought, right? It's up here at these high ranges. Typically overbought would be above 70 on the RSI. Oversold would be roughly around 30. Okay. It is a slight indicator that some investors use to just validate their perspective or idea. All right. So in this case, Nvidia here is up at 140, and the RSI on a weekly time frame is approaching again to that 70 mark. Look in correlation to the chart. When it got overbought here, okay, in the 80s, it sold off a little bit. Okay. And sold off is a little bit drastic. It just had a healthy pullback. When it got a little bit high up here in the 80s, it pulled back. Okay. And you can see here that Nvidia can break into new all-time highs into 150, but it may have a pullback again. Okay. So just be mindful that a stock does not typically or should not be in a straight up line like this, but you cannot stop the momentum of a very well-run company with a solid CEO and a solid product. Okay. So just something to take in consideration. If I come in here to the daily chart, you can see here, and I pull this RSI back down. Okay, you see the RSI is getting a little bit high here on the daily, and then on the 4-hour, it has already kind of approached this 70 mark. Okay, so this tells me that there's a little bit of resistance, and we need to be a little bit mindful coming into their earnings. Rejected at 140 pretty drastically, came back to 118. Came up here, 136, came back to 118. All right, same thing here, a little bit of a lower high. Okay, if I draw a trend line here like that, right? Lower high, came lower each time. Okay, so there was a slight downtrend on Nvidia. Now Nvidia has broken that trend and is forming higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, and now a higher low. But we're back here at all-time highs. Okay, so what am I saying, Brian? What are you saying here? What should I be doing? Like you said, you're going to get to the goods. Let's speed this up. I wanted you to give you context. In the short term, Nvidia could have a quote unquote manipulated pullback. It could have just a pullback in general, right? And it would look something like this. Okay. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the idea can be, it wouldn't surprise me. Okay. It wouldn't surprise me if for some reason one day or earnings or something just simply pulls us back into some of these buy zones. The first buy zone in short term would be right here at this 131 level. Okay. So that is your first, as I call it for my clients, checkpoint. Okay. So here it is. If it pulls back here to 131, that gives you a still higher low. And then that is where buyers might want to step in and push it higher, right? To take out that high like that. Okay. Now, what if it gets aggressive, right? What if earnings or the market decides to pull back? Maybe another, we have LAM this week. Just go Google it. I'm not going to pull it up here, but LAM is in the semiconductor sector, right? Just like ASML had their situation, right? That did this to Nvidia, right? There could be another spur of a moment situation that pulls back Nvidia, some news, whatever it might be. Now, if Nvidia breaks below 131, we have 125 as another slight checkpoint. So I just put that one as a micro area, right? Because there's a little bit of support right there. But most likely, that is where bulls would want to pick up the dip in this macro demand area around 118 to 120, right? Right in this area, fill that gap, come down here, right? And start trying to reclaim that level, okay? And it would bounce off of here like that, okay? For a little retest retracement, okay? So all in all, how I'm looking at Nvidia now is I'm not really interested personally if you decide to trade Nvidia, which is why I've been staying away from it a little bit, because it's just been sitting up here and it really hasn't been choosing a direction to break out or really pull back heavily. Okay. So it's kind of in this range right here, which is good. You can trade ranges because you can trust these levels. So you can trade the range right now from about 140, okay, and some change. Okay. If it breaks above 141, then it's probably going to close to 145, 150, right? But if this continues, that could be a double top and we could pull back just like that. Okay. So trade the range on Nvidia if you were an options trader, if you like trading Nvidia. Okay. If you are a buyer, right, a shareholder, a wannabe shareholder, right, my buy zones are in these green areas, right? The lower the buy zone, the heavier I would personally go. Okay. So my community and I, we bought shares when it pulled back to this 90 range, 90 to 92, which most people did not think Nvidia would ever come back to that level. But I'm telling you, stocks do not go up forever. There'll be something that pulls that thing back to ride it higher. Okay. So my buy zones are at 100. Okay. Anywhere below 100. Ultimately, if something drastic happens over the next year, who knows, right? You just want to be prepared for these opportunities. Buy zone right here at these lows between 75 and 80. Okay. Somewhere around there. And then in between up here are lighter buy zones. You can buy a little bit at 118, 120, right? Load up a little bit more anywhere around the 100 range, and then load the boat, in my opinion, right? Not financial advice, anywhere below 100. And you can see there's some gaps that need to be filled on Nvidia, right? From where it just hopped, skipped, and stepped from previous earnings. Okay. So something to note, and then I'll let you go here, is that just because a company has a bullish momentum and it has earnings that keep beating, the earnings might potentially already be priced in. And here is how Nvidia's earnings look when it's already priced in. Nvidia beat earnings right here, okay? Right here. But there was a little bit of soft guidance on that earnings report from the last earnings, which surprised a lot of people that were unfamiliar with how this skill set or the financial markets work, is that even if a company beats on earnings, it can still turn red, okay? So you've got to be mindful that anywhere around earnings time, you want to be cautious about assuming which direction it's going to go, okay? So it could be the same case scenario at this point, which could set up for a pullback. So if Nvidia has the same result as last earnings, great. Run up into earnings, pull back. Great. Buying opportunity. Cool. Right before the election, there we go. Right. Earnings are, maybe a pullback right before the election. Then we run up into earnings, which is right after the election, 11/20. That would make sense. Okay. That would correlate with what typically happens around an election season. Pull back a little bit, people taking their profits off the table, right? Protecting their downside, and then waiting for the dip to happen to ride it back up when everything's clear. Okay. All right. So in this case, speaking of earnings, if I come to this, is getting a little bit more complex for those that are not familiar with this. There is a PE ratio, right? A price per earnings ratio for every company and also sectors. Okay. So typically you want a price per earnings ratio. You can look this up on Google, right? If I go to Nvidia here and click on Nvidia, they will have a PE ratio, right? That PE ratio, typically you want it to be well balanced, evened out. Okay. Now it's not always going to be true, so don't get into the weeds of it too much, but typically you want to see a PE ratio somewhere around that $30 mark. Okay. Typically, right? For Nvidia, you can see here on this chart that all year, Nvidia, okay, has had a fairly high PE ratio, and it just kept increasing over time. Okay. So back in August, it was at 49. It started to rise and rise and rise and rise. And then now it is, slightly overextended. It's getting a little bit out of pocket. Okay. A little bit out of hand in a good way for long-term investors. But this is a point in time where we need to, if you are owner and shareholder of Nvidia, how do we protect our downside? How do we prepare for buying opportunities on the downside? Okay. So I want you to look and see every time Nvidia, let's actually do a little case study here. Okay. Nvidia last earnings was 828. If I come into the PE ratio, okay, of 828, let me see if it shows right here. Nvidia's PE ratio was right around 58, close to 60. So pretty decently high. It was on the higher side, right? Leading up to earnings at that time, it was at 60, 58, right? It was creeping up into that higher end. Okay. So as a result, potentially, right? Not saying that was it, but there's a lot of manipulation in these financial markets. So you just got to understand that it benefits the wealthy or the ones that understand, the hedge funds. Okay. So that being said, look at this right at earnings. Here's earnings right here. It pushed up into earnings, high PE ratio, sitting slightly close to resistance here, and it could have blasted past, but cool. Maybe it was already priced in. Maybe the guidance was soft for a reason, whatever it was, and it pulled back from 130, which most people didn't even think, and pulled back right back to 116. So that's about a 15-point move overnight, pretty much, and then continued down to back to 100. So you've got, this is on a daily chart, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, roughly a week. It pulls back roughly, 20%, okay, from the highs that quick. So do not count out the fact that if you're a Nvidia bull, which I think a lot of us are, right, do not count out the fact that this company, if you're not paying attention, can pull back pretty heavily very quickly, right, out of nowhere. So be mindful of your buying zones. If you don't know how to chart just yet about how to get these buy zones, check out the charting video that I have at the end of this video or on my YouTube page. If you have any questions and you want to join our community, right, that is the final thing that I'll say to you, I promise, is join Leverage University. That is where my Discord is, if you see right here, okay? I'm also a holistic life and business coach and strategist, so I work with my clients on their overall life, their mindset, psychology. I work with them using NLP, but I also have a skill set in these financial markets. And you can see here that our trading floor is packed. Okay. A trading floor is packed with information, education in our university with trading trainings. Okay. All through here to get you educated. And then we have live trading that goes on each day of the week. Some trade ideas, swing trade ideas, right? Full charting that goes on as well. In our trade ideas, you can kind of see when we're building a little bit out on BA, okay? For example, leading up to their earnings, right? So that being said, I appreciate each and every one of you, right, for tuning in, listening to myself here about NVIDIA. I have not made an NVIDIA specific video on this page just yet, and I know it's hyped. I know a lot of people want to know where it's going next. Should I buy in? Should I be selling? Right? Do your own due diligence, but just make sure you protect your ownership of your shares. If you don't know how to play put options, right, please learn or join our community or work with myself one-on-one and continue to follow the page. If there's any other company you want me to go over, if you like this video, please hit me a like, a subscribe, share this out with anybody. I'll see you guys and ladies in the next video. Peace, love, and blessings to you.